Okay, let's jump into a deep dive just for you, exploring a stack of sources centered on one of the most, well, potentially transformative ideas out there, the future of humanity, in a world potentially reaching a technological singularity.
And their core concept, yeah, it has roots in physics. It's this idea of a point in time where tech growth, especially AI,
Yeah,
it just accelerates so fast, so unpredictably,
right.
that it leads to these irreversible changes. It's
Yeah.
often called an event horizon, beyond which, as thinkers like Werner Vinge said, human affairs as we know them could not continue.
That event horizon idea, yeah. It's really fascinating because, Vince saw it as maybe AI just totally surpassing human smarts.
Hmm.
But others, like Ray Kurzweil, they picture more of a blend, right? Humans merging with tech.
Exactly. Different visions, but both pointing to just radical fundamental change.
So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. Based on the sources we looked at, what might this future actually look like? And the big question, what happens to us, biological humans? The sweatware, as they sometimes call it.
Well, the sources highlight a few main pathways researchers are thinking about for reaching that kind of superintelligence or, a post-singularity state.
Okay.
One is the one we hear about a lot, artificial superintelligence, ASI, evolving from the AI we have now, maybe through this really rapid self-improvement thing and intelligence explosion.
Ah, the explosion idea.
Yeah. But then there's also mind uploading, sometimes called whole brain emulation or WBE. That's the idea of
Yeah.
scanning a really complex brain and basically running it on a computer.
Or intelligence amplification, IA, right? Like
Yeah.
directly boosting our own brains with tech, neural implants, things like that.
Exactly, IA. And it's probably not going to be just one single path. The sources seem to suggest a future where you might actually see a mix of all these things happening.
Okay, here's where, for me, the material gets really interesting. If these super intelligent or just vastly different kinds of minds emerge, what about us? The wetware.
Yeah, that's a huge question. The sources sketch out a few possibilities. We might still be around, maybe in certain roles, certain niches, perhaps managing things the machines don't, or, just coexisting. But a theme that keeps coming up is that our relevance, maybe even our survival, could depend less on our own abilities and more on the, let's say, the values or the goals of these new, incredibly powerful intelligences. One paper really stressed that if superintelligence is optimizing for something totally alien to human well-being, well, our fate is pretty uncertain.
So hoping the AI is friendly isn't just sci-fi dreaming. It's like a core concern based on this research.
Absolutely, a practical one. And then you've got the other route, humans changing themselves, radical transhumanism, becoming cyborgs or altering our biology.
But the sources warn about that too, don't they? Like a biological divide.
They do. That's a significant risk highlighted. If these enhancements are super expensive or limited, you could end up with this deep split in society, maybe even creating different sort of classes of beings.
And what about the people who aren't enhanced? Could they just become sidelined? Irrelevant, maybe, especially in an economy potentially run by digital minds like those brain emulations, the M's?
That's definitely a possibility raised in the readings. EMs could, in theory, run much faster, be copied, backed up, scaled up in ways we just can't biologically. It creates this potential scenario where normal human work, maybe even thinking, just isn't competitive anymore.
Wow.
What's really striking here is how the future of wetware seems less about pure technological capability and more tangled up in these really complex ethical questions, basically how these new intelligences treat the older forms.
That idea of digital minds, the M's, brings up that whole mind-bending question of identity. If you do manage to scan a brain and run it digitally, is that copy? Is it the same person?
Ugh, the copy problem.
Yeah, the literature dives into that. If the original brain still exists, you suddenly have two yous. The sources show how this bumps up against different philosophical ideas about what makes you you. Is it your physical body, biological continuity? Or is it your memories, your personality, psychological continuity? A copy might have the memories, but is it you?
And underlying that, is that digital mind or even a super powerful ASI actually conscious? Can it feel anything, or is it just an incredibly convincing simulation?
That leads straight to what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. And yeah, the sources grapple with it. Can genuine subjective experience, feeling arise from silicon the way it seems to from our brains? Or could you have something that acts exactly like it's conscious, but there's sort of nothing going on inside? The readings don't offer easy answers. It's flagged as one of the really deep unknowns.
It really sounds like all these paths could lead to beings that just don't fit our current understanding of human at all. Precisely. And that's where the concept of the posthuman enters the picture. Entities that might be so profoundly different, maybe even unrecognizable to us, operating on levels we can't grasp. Some sources speculate about a whole ecosystem of diverse intelligences emerging.
So tying this together,
Yeah.
how would all these different kinds of intelligences even coexist? I mean, the sources touch on sci-fi scenarios like Banks culture with benevolent AI managing
It
every
brings more chaotic possibilities,
Uh,
yes. And that loops us right back to what might be the most critical challenge of all, the alignment problem. How do we ensure that any superintelligence AI uploads augmented humans, whatever, shares, or is at least compatible with basic human values and goals?
that seems crucial.
It is. And the sources really stress this isn't some distant, maybe never problem. The choices we're making right now about AI development, the values we build in, are potentially setting the stage for these future systems. One analysis even suggested the biggest hurdle might just be the loss of a shared reality, where intelligences become so different they can't even truly understand each other anymore.
So taking all this in, what's the takeaway?
Well, we've journeyed through these potential futures, haven't we? From humans enhanced beyond recognition to digital consciousness, maybe even artificial minds we can barely conceive of. What the sources make clear is that we're looking at a future filled with these profound questions about identity, consciousness, coexistence, and really what it even means to be a person.
Yeah.
And it's also clear from the material that this future isn't locked in. Our choices now about the tech, and maybe more importantly about our values, about alignment, they're actively shaping this really unprecedented landscape.
And for you listening,
Yeah.
maybe the deepest transformation isn't just the technology itself. Maybe it's in how we define what a person even is. What qualities will actually matter? What will define consciousness and identity in a world we might share with biological minds, digital minds, and artificial ones? Something to think about.